the lectures on the web. You use it much? You find it useful? Find it something that you can send you to sleep if you've got insomnia? So we'll continue to put them on in that case if they're useful. Okay. Well, today we're going to take a little bit of a different tack in our discussion of viruses. And we're going to talk for 3 lectures about viruses that can cause tumors and also HIV/AIDS. And there are only 2 PowerPoint presentations for the 3 lectures, and at some stage in tomorrow's lecture, if I don't get through all the tumor virus stuff today, then you'll have to switch over to the other PowerPoint. But we're continuing on our talk about viruses, and you heard quite a bit about viruses now. Most viruses have a pretty simple aim in life, which is, like most other organisms, to produce more viruses. And so they replicate. Very often they will lyse the cell, and out of the cell will come new viruses, which can go on and infect new cells to make more viruses. So this is called the lytic life cycle, and to make a new virus, you need to express all of the viral proteins in order to make a new virus, the structural proteins and also those proteins that are necessary to control the production of structural proteins and replication of the viral genome. However, there are certain viruses that exhibit a different kind of lifestyle. And these are often referred to as the tumor viruses. And in this case, the virus gets into the cell, but it does not produce new versions of the virus, even though it may well be capable of producing new versions of the virus. And instead, it integrates usually its nucleic acid into the host chromosomes, where it can reside for an indefinite amount of time. Now, later on, if that is a whole virus, it can, under changed circumstances, produce new virions and lyse the cell, get out of the cell. Or, by taking up residence within the cell, it can transform the cell. It can alter the properties of the host cell. Now, as I said, sometimes that latency may terminate and produce new viruses. But in that case, the whole virus must be there in order to make a whole virus, progeny virus. Now, during the process of transformation, during this latent lifestyle, some virus proteins get expressed, and these, in many cases, are the early functions. These are the functions that the virus uses to turn on the synthesis of nucleic acid inside the host cell in order that it may replicate its own genome. There are control proteins. You've heard about early and late proteins in viruses. The early ones are the control proteins, which change the environment inside the cell to the advantage of the infecting virus. The late ones tend to be the proteins that will form the true progeny viruses. So during transformation, you're not making any viruses, and therefore the structural proteins of the virus are not expressed, but many of the early functions are. And these change the properties of the host cell to transform it. And very often, since these are proteins that change the nucleic acid metabolism of the cell, what you see is loss of growth control. And if these cells are things like epithelial cells, and most, if not many, if not most tumors are tumors of epithelial cells, they will exhibit changes in their cell surface proteins, which will allow the cell to become less adhesive to its surrounding cells. The cell becomes more motile. It can invade other tissues and have all the properties that you expect of a transformed cell. And of course, what we see in the patient is its ability to form tumors, in which viral genes interfere with the control of cellular replication. And very often we also see that the integration of the virus, the residence of the virus within the host cell, causes changes in the chromosomes. And that can be just aberrations, which I'll talk to you about a little later on, breaking up of the chromosomes at certain places. So then we can define what viral transformation is. It's the changes in the biological functions of a cell that result from the regulation of the cell's metabolism by viral genes and confer upon the host cell the properties of neoplasia. And both RNA and DNA tumor viruses can do this. Very often, the genome of the virus gets integrated into host cell chromosomes, usually randomly in the host cell. And although the biology of RNA viruses and DNA viruses are somewhat different, the way in which they cause transformation of the cell can often be very, very similar.